Hello and welcome to the C-Team. I'm Mike Curley.
And this is Frank Curley.
And no, it's been a while. I'm sure you guys have been champing at the bit, I should say, to hear us again. So today we're going to talk about a couple movies we've seen recently. One movie we've been talking about for a while, another we have not actually mentioned at all, I don't think.
One that, frankly, I didn't even plan on seeing, but we decided to make this a double feature, so...
We didn't think we were going to be able to talk about the first movie enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, first off, spoiler alert. These are both new movies still out in theaters, and we're just going to spoil everything. Rosebud is a sled.
Yeah.
Okay.
It also killed Dumbledore.
That sled is a real jerk, I got to tell you. I don't trust sleds for exactly that reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, Pacific Rim Uprising.
Yes.
Chicks Dig Giant Robots Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
So... first impressions. Overall, I enjoyed it. It was a good giant monster getting punched in the face by a giant robot movie, as those go.
Yeah, I mean, don't expect anything new, but, if you got time to waste, you could definitely do a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun movie. It builds on the premise of the first one, and it is kind of refreshing in a way where after the first one that the government and everybody backs up the Jaeger program again. It's not something like they get complacent. It's like they know the fight's coming again, so they're knuckling up.
Yeah.
Which is nice to see, because in a lot of these movies, you start off the second movie with they are still caught by surprise, but not as bad as they could have been.
Yeah, and it, like you said, it does expand on it, and
even if it contradicts the first movie in a couple places.
Yeah. Well, one thing, one of the villains, whether or not you consider him a villain because of the brainwashing, up to you. But
he's the impetus behind the plot and the main face of the opposition. He's the villain.
Yeah. Newt, one of the scientists from the first movie,
the squirrely little nerd. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, long story short, he sort of marries one of the brains.
Yeah, that's a little weird. That's very weird, and even weirder when you realize he asked the other guy to come over and meet her earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
Which is again weird.
Yeah.
But I had genuinely not expected it. The movie did a good job of setting up the antagonistic Chinese robot lady to be the villain, especially with what she said. So I genuinely did not see it coming when she was actually a good guy.
Well, here's the way I saw her. I thought she was just going to be, like Walter Peck from, Ghostbusters. Just not a villain, just kind of
obstructionist.
More of an obstructionist. But yeah, I kind of like what they did with Newt, even though I liked him, as one of the heroes as well. But the theme of theme of tampering with something you're not supposed to.
Yeah, he was warned like 18 times in the first movie not to do exactly the thing that gets him into shit in this movie. Excuse my French.
And it showed the more long-term consequences, like marrying the damn thing. But
I'm not sure there was any ceremony. I would say more of a live-in girlfriend kind of thing, maybe a pet.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, let's not dwell too much on that creepiness. But we're continuing the upsides. The pilots that were not named, that were not the main characters, were a little better developed this time.
Yeah. Blonde Zangief from the first one. I would have loved to know.
Yeah, the two Russians.
Who they were. Just like...
That's a story you wanted to see.
Yeah, it's like, where did this guy come from? Well... I guess, he
came from Russia. We know that.
Yeah.
He came from Russia. He married this Amazon woman, and they kicked the crap out of giant robots. That's all we know, and I wish we knew more. Did he wrestle bears in the Arctic?
Probably.
In Siberia to hone his skills? Because there's a few wrestling moves that Cherno Alpha dishes out.
Yeah, now imagine him, in the robot, picking up a couple of bears, just kind of like a couple of action figures. While the bear's like, what in the hell?
There are so many fun things you could do with a giant robot that is just not explored in either movie, really.
Yeah, but maybe it should be like the Team Daryl thing that Thor does, just the in-between screwing about.
Yeah, I want to see giant robot soccer.
Yeah.
Giant robot football. Just all kinds of giant robot sports, like in Lake Michigan or something.
Yeah. And I do look forward to, the Jaegers, taking the fight to them, because...
Yeah, that's how the movie ends. Is Jake, John Boyega's character, declaring that humanity's had enough, and we're going to go over to their planet and start kicking their asses.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we nuked them the first time. You don't. Do we even need to send giant robots, or just do the old Evil Universe and Stargate SG-1 tactic of just sending a bomb through the gate?
Or like in Avengers, or like the first.
I mean, we got enough nukes on this planet. Just send a bunch.
It's like, guys, we finally have a use for all these nuclear weapons.
Just a little. Just minor aside. That was like my biggest criticism of the movie Armageddon, where they just dismiss out of hand shooting nukes at the asteroid. I mean, we have way too many nukes on this planet. Why not give it a shot? Just send them all up there. I mean, it's just dismissed out of hand, and I feel like, you know what, we could have tried. We got nothing else to do with the stupid things. Anyway.
Yeah. So,
back to the movie we're actually talking about.
Yeah. Back to the good movie. So yeah, and it's good to see John Boyega, because the only like big role we saw him in up to this point was Finn.
Yeah. Up to this, he's been in a couple other movies, but this one, what I like about it a lot is you watch that movie, you don't see Finn. He is a different character, and it's not just the accent and the facial hair. He is a different character. You see him as a different character, and I think that speaks to his abilities as an actor. That, you're not just watching it, oh, there's Finn. He has range. I mean, there's similar characters and that they're kind of like reluctant hero types, but they're distinct enough that, you do kind of see his ability to act. He's not playing the same guy.
Right.
So, what else can we talk about? Good sides before we start tearing this thing apart.
Giant robots.
Yeah, giant robots are always good. I like giant robots, and I like the giant monsters that they punch.
And in movies like these, where I know it's like written by an 8-year-old,
or with an 8-year-old's logic.
Well, some people might criticize the lack of scientific logic. I adore it. It is so stupid. What the aliens are trying to do, basically put one of their own in a volcano that should end the Earth.
Well, it within the context of the movie, it makes sense with the rules laid out as we know them in this movie.
They're still insane.
I mean, they're trying to destroy a planet. That's not a plan that you do when you're sane. Anyway, okay, the downsides. My first major one, and again, spoiler alert, they kill off Mako Mori like 30 minutes into the movie. I mean, she was praised as such a good character with her own strengths, her own narrative arc. She wasn't a love interest. She wasn't ancillary to the plot. She had her own storyline that was followed through on well. She was a great character, and here she's killed off to motivate the male main character, which it just does not sit right. Like when it happened, I sighed. I was like, oh, here we go. I mean, It reminded me of a movie I've never seen, the second Kingsman movie, and I haven't seen that one because, spoiler alert again, they kill off Roxy in the first 10 minutes, and she is very similar to Mako in that in the first movie, she may not have been the main character, but she had her own strengths, she had her own arc, she had her own moments to be a hero, and then you kill her off in 10 minutes for shock value. Yeah. And that was a bad thing they did to Mako Mori. I don't know how or if they could bring her back, but if they figure some way to BS that, they should, because that was a little ridiculous.
Yeah, and I can't really think of any time where that happened, and I felt wow, I'm glad the movie did that. I'm glad it made itself quote unquote edgy.
Yeah, I do not get behind deaths for shock value.
Yeah.
I think if a character's death should have meaning if you're going to do it, but a character like that, who is one of the two main characters in the first one, to just like sweep her aside, it's a bad thing to do. I think that's bad writing. I would not have done it. I enjoyed a lot of the movie, but that's something I did not enjoy.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't as annoyed as I was with Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, at least in Thor Ragnarok, the Warriors 3 were kind of like secondary characters. They were kind of static background characters. They were Thor's friends, but they were not they weren't a big deal in the narrative the way Mako was in the first Pacific Rim.
Right, but these are still, supposed to be Thor's, closest friends, and they're basically treated like red shirts.
Yeah, it was
in that movie. For me, that was the far worse example between the two. I mean, they both suck, but
Yeah, but even in the Warriors 3, it was weird. It was a weird thing where they're establishing an anyone can die kind of thing for a movie that is, in all other respects, practically a comedy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that's Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Let's not.
Moving on, there are two major plots going through Pacific Rim Uprising. The main one is Jake and Mako. Well, Jake and his relationship with his father, and he's recruited. He's been kind of a layabout for a while.
Well, thief,
squatter, thief. Yeah, but anyway. He's recruited out of jail to join this up, and he makes it clear like he doesn't really want to. And then Mako's death kind of
motivates him.
Motivates him, yes. Thank you. And motivates him.
Just pick a simple word.
Yeah. All right. The other subplot is the kids, mainly Amara, the person that Jack meets. She builds her Jake. Yeah. She builds her own like mini Jaeger. The cute toy thing. Scrapper, and she gets drafted in to train with the other young Jaeger pilots. Now, it is kind of interesting. I do like that they justify it in that the whole thing with the drift, young people create bonds between each other much easier than older people. So that kind of justifies the kind of almost mix and match nature of the drift in this one as compared to the last one, where it was like a very intimate thing. That said, the actual plot that these kids go through is kind of like a very by the numbers. Oh, I meet you, I hate you, then very briefly, I trust you with my life. And it feels like it was just kind of missing some bits. There's like, they did not develop it enough. I would have gone for a movie of like either or, like one more focusing on Jake or one more focusing on the kid trainees. Maybe even make that a third movie where the third movie is you're training up these kids. And like that's the focus of it, preparing for the invasion of the not Outworld, the Precursors world.
Oh, is that what they're called?
Yeah, they said it in the movie.
Oh, right.
I don't know where they learned it, but they call them the Precursors.
See, other than kaiju, I didn't really a name never really stuck in my head for them.
Yeah, I think it was in the comics in the original. They called them the Precursors.
Yeah. Evil aliens, just as blow them up.
They never bothered to show up and introduce themselves, so I guess we picked a name. Just like we named all of their giant monsters, mainly after Japanese things, apparently. And the third thing was the character Jules, who is kind of like... She shows up as this weird kind of supposed to be a romantic figure for both Jake and Nate. And like they make it clear at the outset that...
Oh, right, her. I thought you were talking about the angry Russian girl.
No, she wouldn't be named Jules. She had like a very Russian name.
Yeah.
But yeah, she shows up for like 3 scenes. I don't even know what the heck she does in the movie besides create this kind of tension. And it's just kind of like I looked her up on the Pacific Rim wiki page to see what she did. The whole thing is literally blank.
Yeah.
It's got her name and that's it.
Yeah, I remember when you added the outline and I looked it up. I was like, huh. Just like
yeah,
okay.
So she's like a totally superfluous character, and I can't tell if that's like bad writing or if that's the joke, because in early conversation between Jake and Nate, like Nate goes to bring it up and Jake just goes, we have better things to worry about. And right at the end she gives them both that weird like behind the ear kiss for luck, and Jake kind of sums it up, well, that was confusing, and you don't see her again the rest of the movie. is just, I don't know what they were going for there, but it kind of falls short no matter which way they were going.
In that character's head, there's just a completely different movie going on.
Yeah, she's in the middle of a romantic comedy where I guess at the end she picks a threesome. I don't know.
Cool. Anyway,
that's a different genre entirely.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are kind of my gripes about it. I'm sure you have more to gripe about.
Honestly, the movie just kind of came and went. Had a few good ideas. I think we went over the worst of the criticism.
Yeah,
really.
But I think overall the first one had a certain charm to it.
Oh yeah,
that was thanks to Guillermo del Toro.
So yeah, Guillermo del Toro had a great quote, I watched the trailer, for the first movie, and I was like, oh, I guess that's all right. And then Mike told me this quote: "It is my duty to commit to film the finest monsters ever committed to screen. And the second is, I made a pledge to create the greatest robots ever committed to screen. And that's a pledge. And when I heard that, for some reason, like a little 8-year-old inside me just went like, all right, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, that's the kind of philosophy behind a movie that I can really get behind. Where you have a simple concept, giant robots fighting giant monsters, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to make the best version of that I can. I will forgive a lot for a movie for a director that goes all in on that.
Yeah. And what was great about the first one is, the plot really doesn't get in the way. In fact, it kind of enhances the stupidity in ways I didn't realize, and I loved it for it.
Yeah, it's one of those old school excuse plots. It's like, okay, we need giant robots fighting giant monsters. Why? Aliens. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
It is a very straightforward, and there's a self-referential aspect to it in that they name the giant monsters kaiju, which is like the Japanese term for, like, Godzilla is a kaiju movie. Mm-hmm. I think it just literally means great beast or something along those lines. So naming it that is like a wink and a nod. It's like, yeah, we know what we're doing here. We're writing our Godzilla fan fiction.
Well, it's a natural, nicknaming, in a culture that would have those things. And then a giant monster came about. Like, we would call a zombie.
Yeah, that's a point that recurs in World War Z, where it takes place in a world that has zombie movies, and a lot of people, they call them zombies with the kind of like self-referential irony of like, I can't believe we're actually fighting zombies. I don't want to call them zombies. I don't want to call them, like, there's a kind of back and forth where every country comes up with a different term for it because everyone feels silly calling the zombies.
I can imagine someone's like, zombies, all right, come on, let's take this seriously. People are actually dying.
We're not using the Z word. Anyway, okay, so final thoughts on Pacific Rim Uprising.
You got a couple hours to kill, go for it.
I'm still not entirely sure what the uprising part refers to, but yeah, it's a fun movie.
Well, they rise up from the sea. That's literally the only thing I got. That is...
Yeah, I thought from the subtitle there was going to be like some inter-Jaeger combat, like some country, like North Korea gets a Jaeger or something.
Oh, God.
And they had to put it down.
Well, I guess there is sort of with an uprising, but that's more brainwashing. The subtitle makes no sense.
Yeah.
I'm not good. Let's not try to defend
but yeah, it's a fun movie. Apparently, there are conflicting accounts of what happens to Raleigh, the guy from the first movie. He's not mentioned at all in the movie. The novelization says that he got cancer from like being in that other world at the end of the first movie and died. But the director said that it's deliberately vague in case Charlie Hunnam wants to come back for a third one. So,
Charlie, you want to come out and play?
Yeah, so who knows? We might see him again. I would hope so. Anyway, now, Ready Player One. This is kind of...
second feature.
Nostalgia the movie.
Yeah. Let's see. The way I like to summarize it is World of Warcraft meets Scott Pilgrim meets Wreck-It Ralph meets The Matrix meets that South Park episode about Wreck-It Ralph and Imagination Land.
You mean of World of Warcraft?
What did I say?
Wreck-It Ralph twice.
The one about World of Warcraft.
and plus Willy Wonka, because that's basically the plot of Willy Wonka is, you get through this contest, you run the company, or in this case, you run the internet. And yeah, it's very much like the book. It's very much nostalgia, the movie, where despite it taking place about 25 years in the future from now, all of the pop culture references are from today and the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, that's we nerds, we fixate on things 20 years ago.
Yeah, unless it's Buckaroo Banzai for some reason.
Yeah, that's a classic with the staying power.
Yeah,
you know what actually surprises
you need to watch that movie.
It surprises me how you didn't see like any Dragon Ball Z stuff.
Huh.
Because if they made the Oasis today, it would be like a sea of Dragon Ball abridged references.
Oh yeah, especially if it came out of
Planet Doom would be filled with Vegeta blowing it up constantly. But anyway, so go through kind of the same weird review format. The upsides, visually, if you're going to make a movie about the inside of the internet, visually it's very appealing. It follows gaming logic without being obtrusive about it.
Yeah, I mean, I still say as an MMO, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Well, it's not really an MMO. It's just kind of an
Massive
internet
multiplayer
well,
online.
But it's not an RPG. It's just the internet. It's the internet visualized. Which I think it pulls that off because, like, you know, the internet, you will see all these weird crossovers and, you know, original character art and, you know, stuff like that.
It does remind me of the BNG forums for actually a few reasons.
Yeah, actually, no Mega Man either. I saw plenty of Street Fighter, but no Mega Man.
Well, at least he's getting his own game again for once.
It was an interesting mix because there was DC characters, but I didn't see many Marvel characters.
Well, Marvel characters aren't enough things already.
Yeah, that's probably why. I just thought it was odd because Capcom has the Capcom versus Marvel thing, but I also saw Mortal Kombat characters, which makes sense with the DC angle because they had DC versus Mortal Kombat a few years ago.
Makes sense in a very roundabout way.
Yeah, and I think there was definitely a lot of video game knowledge in it, especially when the Artemis and Parzival go through Halliday's gaming resume. I should say that again. So it doesn't sound like
his gaming.
Yeah, when Artemis and Parzival talk about their knowledge of Halliday, especially me and Frank, we both kind of squeed when he said his favorite game, GoldenEye.
Favorite first-person shooter, GoldenEye. And we were like, yeah, what's his favorite character in multiplayer? Oddjob. Oh, bastard.
Oddjob has been banned from our personal games for literally decades because the little bastard is too short to be targeted normally, and he's kind of cheating.
Yeah. It's a little honor code the four of us have, like no Oddjob.
Yeah, no Oddjobs.
And out of common sense, don't play as Valentine either.
Yeah,
he's too big a target.
Too big a target. Same with Jaws. Jaws is too tall. But yeah, I mean, it's a good movie. It's I liked all the characters for the most part. The characters you're supposed to like. Yeah. And very little of it seemed forced the way some movies do.
Well, I guess we'll get to the downsides of it, but yeah, I like the side characters. Yeah, the main characters, we'll get to that. But did I call it with his friend online being a girl the whole time?
Yeah, right. Where did you call it? I think you called it right around where the point that H says that the other character, that Artemis might be a guy.
Yeah, and I started to realize that it sounded like a voice forcefully toned down where the other characters really haven't demonstrated that.
Yeah, it was clearly a modified voice.
Yeah, I was like, I bet that's a girl. I was like, yes.
Yeah, it kind of worked out. And I thought it was a very interesting take on the moral about sharing personal information online. If you give your name to people online, the evil mega corporation that runs the world will blow up your house.
I learned that lesson 5 times.
Yeah, we've had a rough childhood.
Yeah. Or give yourself away online will have you meet up with good friends or something.
Well, yeah, that's what happened to me, although not in that same circumstances where I was running from a mega corporation. Not this time, anyway.
Not yet. I mean, you are in the news, so...
Yeah. Technically, I'm part of a mega corporation, I guess. Maybe not mega, but anyway.
A mega-ish.
So I enjoyed the movie. It was cool seeing all the characters, all those video game characters playing around with each other. And... yeah, I thought it was overall a good movie.
Yeah, it was... I mean, I think I liked Pacific Rim Uprising better, but...
Yeah, I'd say overall Pacific Rim is probably a better movie overall. But I would say Ready Player One is worth seeing. It's fun. It's a lot of nostalgia. I was like, a lot of times I missed what was happening in the main part of the screen because I was looking at the back, looking for some cameos. And it's amazing to me they were able to get as many variety of characters as they did.
Yeah. So now for the downside. The hero and villain, some of the dullest, just stock characters I've ever seen in a film.
Yes, but the villain, I will agree with. Yeah, he's basically corporate douche number a lot. You've seen this character a bunch of times. He doesn't really bring anything new to the type of role, but for this kind of story, it kind of works. because it's not, the story isn't necessarily about the villain here as it is about the corporation as a whole. I don't know.
Honestly, I would have made the skull chest guy the main villain.
No,
Not the goon, but like the main villain. Like another contender who doesn't basically space quest his way through his problems.
Well, I kind of liked the goon as he was, because he is the archetypal Munchkin in like an MMO, where he's got all the stuff to make him cool, to make him look cool and imposing, and he's got all the stats and stuff, and he might actually be a good player. But when we get down to it, he's a nerd playing an MMO. And I liked that kind of aspect of him, where that he probably has more in common with Parzival than he does with the people he's working for.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why I think he would have made a better central villain.
Maybe I feel like for this, the villain had to be somebody who was outside of the hero's experience, someone who is in a lot of ways an opposite to the hero. Because I feel like him and Parzival probably want a lot of the same things from gaining control over it. He's probably not somebody who's going to want 80% of his viewpoint covered with ads. He wants money, but I feel like he's more of a gamer than the person he's working for.
Well, a villain doesn't have to be the exact opposite. I mean,
he doesn't have to be the opposite, but he has to be opposed enough that the hero is going to go well out of his way to stop them.
Well, you have Ra's al Ghul, ultimately someone with a very similar goal to Batman.
Not really, because his goal is to destroy the city in the immediate. Batman, but here's the thing: basically the villain in Ready Player One, if he wins, that's basically all those things that people were talking about net neutrality. That's the end of the internet / the Oasis, the end of their life as it is. I feel like IROC, the dragon character, he wins. He's not going to do that. He's probably going to abuse the power he has, but he's not going to do it in the same way. I feel like for this, there needed to be a bigger threat, something that was diametrically opposed to what the heroes want out of the world, for it to be an effective villain.
But still, I can never remember the villain's name. It
was something like cilantro or something.
Cilantro is a spice, dude.
I know, but it's like Saranto or it's something like that. I can't remember either. I'm not saying he's a great villain, but I think he's the villain that he's not the villain we need. He's the villain we deserve in this movie.
That's depressing.
No, I think he's the right villain for this movie, because the movie is kind of about the freedom versus the corporatization of the internet.
I don't know, but still, the main villain just feels very stock.
He was. I'm not disagreeing on that point. I think there is room for tropes and cliches in movies, and this was more of a spectacle movie than it was a deep plot movie.
Right, but we'll get to that point in a moment. But you can have both. And my other criticism of the movie, problem of tell don't show. Where it's like, okay, screenwriters out there, here's some advice. When the camera is focused on a Godzilla-like character and then revealed to be more of a machine, you do not need a character to shout, "It's Mecha Godzilla."
I will give a pass to "It's fucking Chucky," though, for being hilarious.
Yeah, well, that actually serves a purpose. Okay, we get it, it's Mecha Godzilla, and I feel like there are quite a few other references where they just wouldn't shut up about it.
Yeah, I mean the Iron Giant. We know it's the Iron Giant.
Yeah. The first Jaeger.
Yeah, the original Jaeger. No, actually, it was an alien robot, I think.
Oh, okay.
First Jaeger is
a hybrid.
First Jaeger, we're talking Neon Genesis Evangelion or something.
Yeah,
or maybe Gundam. Also, the Gundam was cool. I did like that. I love big battle sequences like that, and one where you have the Battletoads and Street Fighter and Sonic the Hedgehog throwing down. that was one of my favorite bits of the movie, just that whole big melee, because that was really well pulled off, I thought.
Yeah. So, now a couple of topics, specifically for Ready Player One. Plot versus special effects. Or Ready Player One reminds me a lot of Avatar. A special effects heavy film, very pretty movie. By a director who's proven himself, again, with some of history's greatest films. But the plot is serviceable at best, eye-rolling at worst.
See, I don't see where it was eye-rolling necessarily, but
the main villain.
We're gonna have to disagree on that.
There is a good story here, but like you need more skill as a writer, and it's not really a matter of budget. When it gets right down, it's not a matter of budget. Just to make a bit of dialogue better.
It kind of is, because you have to pay the writer and you get what you pay for there. Although in this case, the screenwriter was the author of the book. And I've heard the book has a lot of similar criticism where it's more of a nostalgia trip. I mean, it must be a decent book at least, I figure, because it's a decent movie, but it's not Citizen Kane.
Well, I'm not even asking for Citizen Kane. Even some, like Jurassic Park, something with all those, amazing effects that really still hold up today. And with memorable characters, and memorable central characters, I should say. Jurassic Park. Avengers is basically Pacific Rim, only with superheroes for the most part. But I love the main characters.
Yeah, well, they came kind of ready made,
right? But you were still rooting for them, where I couldn't care less about Percival.
Oh, that's fair. I enjoyed Parzival or Wade Watts as a character, I guess, more than you did. But I can see he's not a groundbreaking protagonist. He is, he's a little by the numbers too. He's your classic. Well, he's not even like a lonely nerd. He's got like a really good friend from the start. He's in the world of the Oasis. He's as sociable and as good a guy as anyone else. So he's not. I guess he's not even like the classic loner hero. He's just, I guess he's kind of an everyman for that world.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will agree they're both a little by the numbers. I think that matters less in a case like this, in a movie that's more about the spectacle and more about what you can see and do than the plot itself.
Yeah, but my point is, you can have both.
You can, but they decided not to. I mean,
you
can't have everything.
Now, and the second topic, a villain servicing, the higher, concept. To me, the main villain doesn't really expand, the high concept, and he does, I know what you said about net neutrality and all that, but I don't really feel it really expands on what they give us. Like take Wreck-It Ralph. The main villain is very much like the hero, and expands the whole jumping between games, wanting to change your fate for the most part. Like Wreck-It Ralph didn't want to be the villain anymore, and Turbo feared for the end of his game. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm talking about. When it comes to like a villain, you're really like expanding the concept that story provides. And again, the one Ready Player One, he's just kind of there.
Yeah, well, he represents kind of like the worst case scenario of the contest being won with how they're acting already. I think in this case, the villain doesn't reflect that. He doesn't reflect on the hero. He's not an alternate version or future for the hero. He's not really on the hero's level for most of it. He's more of a kid show antagonist where he's kind of the older authority figure that is there to be hated. Yeah. And he's good at that. He's a jerk.
Yeah. Then we have the blowing up the aunt and uncle, which is kind of...
Yeah, that's a bad thing too.
Yeah.
Although even if the aunt and uncle were kind of jerks, especially the uncle.
Yeah.
It wasn't even the uncle. He was like the boyfriend that she had that week.
Yeah. Well, so, I'll say that I didn't really miss either of them.
Yeah, well, I will say that the movie did surprise me. Toward the end, I was sure it was going to be like because I know there's a sequel book, Ready Player 2. So I wasn't sure that he was actually going to, again, spoiler alert, as if you couldn't guess, that he was going to get the egg. I thought it was going to be something like a prize that really wasn't what it was, or he didn't get the prize, or something like that would leave open for a sequel. Because in a setting or any setting, if you give the heroes like everything they could dream for at the end of the first one, you don't have anywhere to grow from there.
Yeah, unless you want to just
do the reset button, which I hate doing that too.
Yeah, which Marvel's kind of infamous for.
Well, most comics are, yeah. But I overall, again, I enjoyed the movie. I feel like, a couple of the characters, the main character and the villain, were kind of flat. Actually, I wouldn't have been surprised if Artemis actually got the egg.
Yeah, and that's actually one more criticism of it. It's like, you're not going to like what you see. It's a birthmark.
Well, some people get really hung up about those kinds of things. And you know what? I was reading someone posited that in the context of in a world like the Oasis, where you can look like anything you want, compare the absolutely idealized bodies everybody's going around with there. Yeah, compared to that, a birthmark is going to be bad. But she kind of comes to terms with it toward the end of the movie, too.
Honestly, I think it would have been more fitting if she was like in a wheelchair or something like that.
Yeah, I had thought it was going to be something like that, too.
Like someone legitimately crippled, someone who, loves the world for a different reason from the protagonist.
An interesting thing would have been, they weren't going to do this obviously, but an interesting thing would have been like if Artemis genuinely was like a really fat guy or something, and Parzival was still okay with that. That would have been kind of refreshing, because a lot of these movies where it's like, oh, it's not who you look like. It's what you are inside. The person, what they look like, is still a supermodel. So it would have been interesting to actually have Artemis turn out to be somebody, even just like average looking.
Honestly, when I figured out that his friend was a girl the whole time, I was like, all right, maybe they're going to hook up.
No, in the book she's a lesbian.
Oh, well, all right.
Which explains also why H was totally okay with the naked lady in Shining.
So, any last thoughts?
I'm not sure I want to read Ready Player One, but it would be interesting to see what changes were made. I know a few of the things, the Gundam was actually Ultraman in the book, but they couldn't get the rights to Ultraman, and that's actually where the whole time limit thing comes from, because Ultraman's lore is he could transform for like 10 minutes.
I've heard that neither the book or the movie really sway from each other as far as likability. Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have been made a movie if someone didn't like it. Okay, so I guess that's all. That's all we got for today. What do we got coming up? Avengers.
Holy crap.
Avengers Infinity War, Deadpool, Solo. We're going to be talking nerd movies for a while. So probably the next thing we will be talking about is Avengers.
Yeah, we want to get these two out of the way before the rush really hits in.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, I'm Mike Curley.
And this is Frank Curley.
This has been the C-Team.
Goodbye.